Okay, it's 7 p.m. on the dot. And because we like to work with time, we're going to start right away so we can have the rest of our evening to ourselves. I want to thank you all for being here quite early. I'm so happy to have you all here with me. I can see so many great persons here. I am super excited that you're all here. Some of my professors are here. Some of our technical team is here. So I can see Professor Christian. I've said hello. I've seen Professor Kelechi Meziobi all the way from Federal University or Alex Okweme Federal University. Yeah, I can see Happy Chisom. I can see Njoku Samuel. I can see, hold on, I'll get all your names. I can see Dr. Antonia Ngu. I can see Dr. Chidimma for hi, darling. Thank you for joining. I can see Dr. Chigozume. If I get your titles wrong, please correct me. Correct me. I can see Dr. Kelechi Meziobi. Thank you, Drs. Dorcas, Shehu, Emmanuel, Daniel, Eunice. Thank you all for being here. If I didn't mention your name, I promise you I'm so happy that you're here with us. This meeting is recorded and Gemini is taking notes, so you will, of course, have access to everything. But before we start, my team and I would ask you to please put down your email addresses in the chat box. We want to create a mailing list so that the next time we will be having a section like this, it will be easier to send you calendar invites so that you can, quickly save it to your calendar without, having my team and I reminding you over and over. It will be easier for you to save it in your calendar. All right, so please put down your email addresses in the chat box. If you have any questions as we proceed, put them down in the chat box too. All right, thank you so much. My name is Dr. Bianca Mbonwa-Digwe. I am convening this webinar. If you were with us last month, we had a guest speaker who has this wealth of experience, and he came online and taught us how to harness artificial intelligence for writing research. It was awesome. So today we have decided again to bring in someone who is great in his field, all the way from the United States of America. I tell you, I told you last week, I always source for the best for us. We cannot learn everything in the classroom. So when we have people who have gone out of their way to gain more knowledge, more than we have given in the classroom, we tend to bring them in to share their knowledge with us. That way you will find out you will be an all-round individual, someone who knows a lot. And that is our goal with this. Someone asked me, why are we having this? How much are we paying? No one is paying a dime. Well, apart from your data anyway, but no one is paying a dime. So we are here to learn. And I am so happy that I have a lot of my senior colleagues, a lot of my friends who are out of Nigeria supporting this initiative. I'm so happy that they are sharing their knowledge with us. So without speaking so much, I will quickly introduce our speaker, our teacher today, and hand over everything to him. All right. So we will be hearing from Dr. Christopher Ocheni, who is a Graduate Council Fellow with the University of Alabama, United States of America. He is majoring in educational research, majoring in educational statistics and research methods, and he is serving as a statistical consultant with the Capstone College of Nursing. right there in the US. He's supporting interdisciplinary research through data analysis, through survey design, and quantitative modeling. All right, so he is a quantitative researcher. His work focuses on, psychometric modeling of educational and psychological constructs. His research also, he's also very interested in item response theory, in cognitive diagnostic modeling, and structural equation modeling. He has authored and co-authored over 30 peer-reviewed publications. Yes, and he's an editor for several academic journals. He's also an active member of several professional organizations, including the National Council on Measurement in Education, NCME, and the American Educational Research Association, AERA. Christopher collaborates with scholars across education, health sciences, and the social sciences to advance rigorous and equitable measurement practices. Now, aside all these, I am also very happy and excited to mention that Christopher was once with us at the University of Nigeria. Yes, before he left for the United States, and he is very willing to share a lot of experiences with us. So without much further ado, join me as I welcome my very own friend and colleague and mentor and cheerleader, Dr. Christopher Ocheni. You're very welcome, sir. The floor is yours. You're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bianca, for that wonderful introduction. At a point, I got confused a bit because I was like, oh, is it me you are introducing with all this profile?
It's
Well,
you.
thank you all. Thank you all also for being in attendance. I think without wasting so much time, we'll get straight into the business of the day, and I will start by sharing my screen. Just give me a moment.
Okay. So our speaker says he would want to restart his device. He's not able to share his screen. So we'll wait for him. While we wait, please put your email address in the chat box. All your questions going further will be there. And at the end of the session, he will respond to them all. Thank you for being here. So for those of you that saw the flyer, I'm sure you already have an inkling as to what we'll be talking about. I call it an inkling because with what he shared with me, I think we are in for a full ride. Yes. So, and I'm very excited for that. So we're going to be having a lot of things shared with us, a lot of resources to go home with. He has prepared resources that you can go home with and practice later on, and that is super nice. So, okay, I think he's back. Oh, no, he's not. All right. So while we wait, I want to run down on what he has prepared. So he says he's going to be sharing with us how we can collect and analyze data without stress. Believe me, whether you are an academic or a student, whether you are in 100 level or in final year or you are running your PhD program, I know that at a point, we have all faced some kind of wall regarding data collection, regarding which tool should we use to analyze, and he's here to help us. So if you have run into that kind of wall or you want to help someone overcome that hurdle, I think this webinar is for you. So he will be sharing beginner-friendly analysis tool that we can use with confidence. He's going to share data repositories. So we are going to have access to where data is stored. And he's going to teach us how to clean data with R and even how to use artificial intelligence to code. So he's here. Let me quickly ask
are we able
him.
to see my screen now?
Oh, yes, it is coming up. I wanted to ask you. Oh, yes, it's here. I wanted to
Oh,
ask if I should
sorry
share the
for
screen on
that.
your behalf.
Jeez. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
sorry for
okay.
that. So we'll go right into business. And so today we'll be looking at how to collect and analyze data without stress. So we'll be looking at a practical workflow for researchers. We want to see how we can transform research from this overwhelming state to something that is very manageable through structured methodology. And so this is the QR code that will take you to the learning materials in case you are with your system or laptops and you want to have access to some of the materials so that you can follow through during our lab session. You might want to scan this QR code as we go through the presentation so that you prepare ahead of the lab session. I think we'll be needing we'll be needing, if you have SPSS, good and fine. We'll be needing Jamovi and some other sources that you could find via this QR code. And so our presentation is going to be under these four major contents. So we'll be looking at the core problem. We'll try to understand why research feels very stressful and how our workflow issues create an unnecessary anxiety and tension. And so we'll kind of do a mindset shift. We'll try to replace paralysis with our process through stages of our predictable research workflow. And then we'll look at complete workflow where we'll talk about practical steps from decision questions to data collection, data organization, analysis, and interpretation. And after that, we'll look at tools and resources such as software, AI tools, and best practices to execute research that will not experience a lot of stress and anxiety. So starting with the core problem, we ask the question, why do research feels very stressful? And I guess the reasons are not so far from what we have here. Most of the time when we are embarking on research, we kind of have too many decisions to make at a time. And oftentimes our questions are unclear. We think about the data collection process, maybe wrong choices of analysis, and we want to also learn softwares on the deadline, poor data organization, fear of statistics. These are many others are some of the reasons why research tend to feel very overwhelming. And so the key point here is to see how to let us know that stress in research comes from poor workflow generally, not just from our data or statistic that we think. And so the way forward is for us to follow a structured process. And so we have the stress-free research mindset. So before now, we kind of look at the research from the angle where we expect to know everything before we begin our research. That is not really an ideal thing. So we need to refocus, and refocusing means we need to like follow some laid down procedures or processes. We would understand with me that every research investigation that we embark on tend to answer three key questions, the why, the how, and the what. The why, it's more like the motivation. It's more like the problem, the reason why you are embarking on that study, why you are carrying out that research. What question do you intend to answer? What is that thing that is bothering you that you want to profile solution to? That is usually the why of every research investigation. And when you're done getting that question, having a clear focus, then you want to go about the how, which deals with the processes. This focuses on the methods, like your methodology, where you talk about your audience, your data collection, the kind of data you will need, the instrument that you will need for such data, the analytical procedure that you will employ, and how your interpretations would look like. So these are the kind of questions we ask under the how. And once you are done addressing the how, you look at the product, which is the what. So the what tells you the outcome. That is where you begin to explain. Okay, after asking the why and knowing the how, this is what I have found. This is my results. And so research basically revolves around these three key questions. And that means we need to make sure we follow these guidelines. We try to clarify our research questions, plan our measurements, collect appropriate data, and then run our analysis as well as interpret. Of course, we must have it at the back of our mind that we must not always overanalyze our results. So having done that, we then move to the next stage, which is this. We start with decision questions. So before now, we kind of look at research, and when we want to embark on any study, students oftentimes will tell you that they want to study students' performance, and then you begin to wonder, what kind of students' performance exactly are you studying? It's not specific, it's vague, it's very broad, so it's confusing. So it is important that we be more focused. At least you could say something, does X predict Y? In essence, does students' engagement predict their academic achievement? Does students' interest predict their achievements? And so this is more specific and more focused. You look at maybe, do groups differ? Does intervention change outcomes? So these are some of the questions that give you a clearer focus into what you are doing. So whenever you want to embark on your research, you should think more about decision questions instead of posing questions that are very broad or vague. So when you have your research questions and you are addressing relationship, you want to think about regression or other correlational techniques like the Pearson, the Spearman rank, the Kendall coefficients of concordance, and so many others, depending on what you want to do. If you are thinking about group differences, you want to look at maybe t-test, ANOVA, or even ANCOVA, depending on what you are really studying. And then when we talk about change, maybe you want to measure before and after, you can think about the pair t-test. You look at structure, how items are clustering. We talk about factor analysis. And if you are doing classification, who belongs where, you could talk about logistic or even talk about cognitive diagnosis modeling or even item response theory, depending on what you want to do. And so you must understand that you need to choose analysis before collecting data. You don't just collect data and then you begin to decide what kind of analysis you want to perform. So once you are done with knowing this, it's important to also have this at the back of your mind, a three variable rule. It will help you to prevent bad data sets. And so your outcome variable, so what you are explaining exactly, that is your criterion variable. So when you look at your data, what is your outcome variable? You have to identify that. You look at your predictor variable, what explains it, what is explaining your outcome variable, and then control variable, depending on the context of the study. It's not all studies that have control variables, so you have to have that at the back of your mind. When you do this, you must also avoid some data collection techniques or some things that could really hamper your data sets. So you must make sure you don't collect so many data than required, because oftentimes we go to the field and when we are collecting data, we want to over collect the data. So let me collect 50 more, let me collect 100 more. It kind of distracts you. So you need to stay focused on the data sets that you need. And once you do, you also need to think about demographics. If you don't have a purpose for any information or demographics in your study, you don't need to collect the data, because it can be very distracting if you are not an expert or if you are not very careful. And so you don't also get variables without a hypothesis. So you just begin to introduce variables that you did not plan for. All this could affect your data collection and your analysis subsequently. So when you do this, it helps you to prevent data collection stress and help you to have a more focused research. So in the process of collecting data, here are some smart data collection techniques that we could employ. First of all, while conducting your studies, you could use a lot of resources like tools and instruments to say to collect your data. Some persons designs the scales themselves, some others adopt instruments or even adapt instruments and modify. But here are some online sources, or where you can, online sources basically where you can design your survey, you can design your instruments to or questionnaire to get it out to audience that would help you with providing responses. We have Qualtrics, we have Google Forms, Kobo Toolbox, we have Redcap. This is mostly applicable for those that are in the medical field, SurveyMonkey, and so many other ones. These are survey sites where you design your survey and then you get the link from these sites and then you send it out for data collection. But when designing your survey, it is important that you put certain things into consideration. If you are using maybe 4 or 5 point Likert scale, you should know that it performs better than the 7 point scale in most contexts. When you are also writing your items, you have to be mindful of reverse code items. You can also pilot test your study to see if you are actually having any issue in terms of data collection. Avoid too many open-ended questions, except you are doing a qualitative study. And of course, because of cultural differences, you must be mindful of the environment you are, because some things that we consider as stress in Nigeria, for instance, may not be considered as stress in the US. So when you are raising your items, so you have to pay attention to this, review the wordings to make sure that a particular statement is not asking for two responses at a time. You can also include attention checking items to avoid aberrant responses, because when you give your surveys to respondents, people kind of just tick whatever they feel like. But when you include attention checking items, for instance, and after 2, 3, or 5 questions, you could include or insert a questions that say tick the red option from this list. So anybody that ticks green or yellow, that gives you an indication that the person is probably not paying attention, and you might want to discard that particular respondents. And so you do item alignment with the purpose of your study, and you also try to make sure your survey is not so lengthy. If it's too lengthy, it can become very boring for students. And so you try to also evaluate the psychometric properties of your survey or instrument, depending. And so when you do this, you can disseminate it, give it out to respondents if you are able to physically meet them at the place where they are in terms of your target audience. But if you are not able, there are also online resources where you could disseminate your survey. And so here are some of the online sources or websites. So we have Prolific. It's a very popular site, and it has fast recruitment, data they are reliable, and it's mostly useful for those in behavioral and psychological research. It's just that you have to pay participants. We have Amazon Mechanical Turk, we have Cloud Research Connect, and so we have Reddit, we have Survey Circles. Here you get free responses. So once you place your survey on these sites, they automatically send link to potential respondents who will either accept or reject. So once they accept, they provide free responses to your survey, and then you collect your data. And they have a platform in such a way that it is those you need for your study that would respond to the survey. So it's not just any random person. They will match them based on their profile. So these are some of the websites where you could send out your survey. Of course, we also have other sources of data where we have our secondary data. We have so many databases and repositories where you could get secondary data, especially if you don't have the technical know-how to design a survey yourself. You can then go to these sources. So we have Kaggle, we have our Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Research, we have World Bank Database, WHO, and so many other sites. Of course, for those in education and psychology, some of these sites are also very helpful. We have PISA program of international student assessment, trends in mathematics and science study. We have AdHead, we have Open Psychometrics for those that are in psychometrics. We have Item Response Warehouse also. So you have access to a lot of databases or repositories. So you can access them, and then you do your study seamlessly without any stress. Yes, this is also another means of generating your data via simulation studies, basically. And so this helps you to generate data that are equally reliable. And so simulation study basically is, or simulation is just a systematic way of generating data that kind of mirror real life situations or real world patterns. And so it helps you to work on your data without having to bother about barriers or privacy concerns. And when you're simulating your data, you could maybe use the Monte Carlo simulation or the bootstrapping method or even synthetic data generation. But then you have it at the back of your mind that be it the bootstrapping or the Monte Carlo simulation, of course, you have to make sure that your data comes from either the normal distribution, binomial, Poisson, even the beta distribution or Bernoulli distribution, depending on the conditions you are setting for your study. You can easily do this in R or even in Python. You can use this software to like simulate whatever data sets that you need. And this is mostly helpful when you have privacy concern or you want to, or maybe the cost of collecting data is very high, or you have a model to validate, have a statistical model to validate. So you might want to use the simulation approach. But then you must understand that there are best practices. So you must document assumptions clearly and then specify random seeds, validate synthetic data against non-benchmark. So you have to understand that in real life, when you have real data, what are the expected outcomes. So you use this outcome to set benchmarks for the simulation so that whatever values you are getting from the simulation will look similar to the real world situation. So simulation is also another useful approach to like get data for your study. And when you are getting your data, you must pay attention to data organization. A lot of the time, we tend to want to ignore this, but if you're able to organize your data very well, it solves most of your problem when it comes to data analysis. If we look at the illustration, for instance, we see a situation where we have ID, we have gender, we have score, and then we have anxiety. So this is neater and it's self-explained. When you look at it, you can see the structure of the data. So we must also understand that when it comes to naming our variables, it should be short, concise, but then we must try not to merge multiple variables into a single cell. We must try to handle missing data effectively. So because when you leave missing values as empty cells, if you are doing your analysis, it could be a big challenge. And then store related data set across multiple sheets without clear documentation is a big issue when you don't address that. So you must avoid some of these things listed here. If you're able to do this effectively, I think you are good to go. So when you have your data, you need to also clean your data. And when we go to the lab session, we are going to be seeing some of these things. So your data needs to be cleaned. First, you have to check for duplicates by ID. So this will help you to detect and review duplicates to see the ones you need to remove, the ones you need to merge, or the ones you need to keep. You do diagnostic cleaning, check for impossible values. For instance, if you are dealing with the data that has age, for instance, and then you go to one of the cells and you are seeing 903, or 804, you begin to wonder, is the person Methuselah? Why is it that the person's age is 903 and thereabout? So it tells you that there is an error because you are getting something that does not make sense logically. So that is why it is important to actually cross-check your data. Of course, you need to examine the missingness to know what kind of missingness you have, whether it is missing complete at random, missing not at random, and all of that. Because oftentimes when we give our survey, some persons leave some spaces empty or blank because maybe they don't know what to respond, or they are confused, or they could just fill in anything. So you must check for the missing pattern to see if it's something that is intentional, if it's something that maybe the respondents do not know, and then find a better way to handle that. After checking for missingness, you also want to do cosmetic data cleaning. And so this implies renaming your variables, giving them names that are very meaningful, labels, so that by mere looking at it, mere inspection, you will know what the data is implying or what it's talking about. So when you're done with that, you need to save your data, save a raw copy. Always make sure that the original data set is somewhere else so that you can double check if there is any issue. Then you do your descriptive analysis. You could use the summary function or describe function if you are using R. Of course, in SPSS and other statistical software, there are other approaches to checking for descriptive statistics. And then you can also check assumption, because this particular aspect is most researchers tend to want to avoid assumption check, and it's not so important. It's not so nice. So you must have all this at the back of your mind. Your data cleaning can be done in Excel, it can be done in R, it can be done in Jamovi, and even SPSS. So when you are done cleaning your data, you need to choose the right analysis. And so you could think about this decision tree. Maybe when you have just one variable, you might want to just do only descriptive statistics. If you have two or more variables, for instance, if you have two variables that are both numerical and you're interested in relationship, you might want to examine the correlation or the regression. If you are looking at numeric and group t-test, ANOVA, depending, and of course we have chi-square. And when you have so many variables like multiple variables, you can talk about regression, structural equation modeling, you talk about multi-level modeling, and all other kinds of statistics that requires that number of variables. Yes, so if your data is clean, well organized, the next thing that you want to do is to perform your analysis. And here are a list of some statistical software. Some of these software they have AI components that you can, they have plugins, AI plugins that you can also install, and then they help you to run your analysis. The Jamovi has a cloud, is an open source, so you can access it directly online, just of course, you can equally download it into your system, you install it, and it works more like the SPSS. The same thing with JAPS. They have a similar interface like SPSS. And if you are somebody that is good with coding, you can use R, you can use Python. Of course, you can also code in Stata, M+, SAS, Lisrel. You can equally code in all these software, but you can do that in SPSS. But SPSS, what you do majorly is the syntax. I think the syntax of SPSS is somewhat similar to that of Lisrec, but these are all statistical software that you can use for your analysis. You can also do coding. And if you are someone who is new to coding, who doesn't know so much and wants to learn, you can also access this website, W3 Schools, Data Camp, Code Academy, Kaggle, Free Code Camp. So these are all open sources that you could learn some coding skills from there, and then they will help you. You go a long way in terms of your data analysis. Yes, outside using those softwares, we also have AI sources that could also help with our analysis. And so we have ChatGPT, which I believe a lot of us are very familiar with. This can help you with your data interpretation, and you can equally do analysis on ChatGPT. Everything with AI is all about prompting, knowing the right prompts to give, the right instruction to give to AI. So you could actually use ChatGPT for your analysis. Hopefully, if time permits us, we are going to illustrate that. We have science space as well. This could also help you to do a lot of things. It could help you to clean your data. It could help you to do extensive literature review. It could help you to write. It could help you to do data analysis and also interpret. We have R Capilot, Codium, and then JASP AI plugin. Julius AI can also help you with a lot of coding. In short, I use Julius and Chats in terms of preparing my codes. And they help you when you make mistake. If there is an error in your coding, you can also give it to this AI, and then they will help you to decipher the code. They will debug the code and tell you where the error is and all of that. So they also, in terms of writing support, ChatGPT can help you to rewrite your results, organize it very well. You can use Grammarly for clarity, Perpetua, and Pepper. You have Perplexity, we have Cloud. So these are all AI sources that are very instrumental when you want to maybe write your results, reorganize your manuscripts, and all of that. And so we must understand that if we use AI, we are using it for structures, not conclusions. So we have to observe ethical guidelines and use it responsibly, because AI are not humans. They make mistakes depending on the instruction or the prompt you are giving to them. And that is why you can see two persons give AI prompt to give them similar thing, and then the results might be different because of how you write your prompt. So you must make sure that you try to balance, double check whatever you are getting from AI to make sure that you are on track. And so, having said this, before we proceed, we are going to basically do a short lab session where we try to look at everything we have talked about so far, look at it from a practical angle, and then we'll see how we can, in reality, use some of these sources or this platform to aid and simplify our data analysis and research generally. So I am going to take us to the lab session briefly. So I will pull up the lab session.
So just for clarity, when he says lab session, he means practicals. So if you have enjoyed this presentation so far and you were taking a lot of screenshots like me, even though I have the PowerPoint, I was taking a lot of screenshots, especially when he was showing the slide where we had all those, resources. I was taking a lot of screenshots. So if you have enjoyed the session so far, please use your reaction box, give us a thumbs up, give us a clap, give us a heart, and anyone that you want. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So if you have questions as we go further, keep putting them down in the chat box. We will not be, opening them, muting us, so we don't get a lot of noise. So put down your questions in the chat box, and my team is taking notes. And then when we are
Are
done,
we,
we'll
are we
is
able to
going
see my
to.
screen?
Yes, we can. We can see your
Okay.
screen.
So I want to quickly go to one of the repositories I mentioned. So we download the data real time and then do some data cleaning on it and all of that. So
Yeah.
I will go to open psychometrics. I already have a code prepared. And so this is a data repository where you have access to so many data. So we can see these are the data sets. Of course, you want to download the data set. This is where you need to click. And if you want to take the survey, like provide your own responses, you can click on this link. It will take you to the survey itself. So I think I already prepared my code with the depression, anxiety, stress scale. So I am going to just download the data sets here. And so I will then go to my download and then pick the data because I already created a folder for this. And so paste, I will paste it in the folder. But because it is a zip file or a zip folder, I am going to try to extract the content. And so I will extract everything into this folder. Yeah, so because we will need to set our working directory. So I want to take it directly to the webinar folder. So I guess I didn't copy it. So I will just copy everything. Then I'll paste. So we have the data set here. We have the code book. And so I will briefly open the code book, and then the code book gives us a rundown of the data sets. It describes the data briefly. So these are the items, the questions. So you can see question 1, I found myself getting upset by quite trivial things. So you can look at, these are all the items, the descriptions, of course, how the responses, 1 did not apply to me at all, to 4. Then this also tells us in the data set, we are going to see some of these things, intro LLabs and test LLabs and all of these combined and all of that. So we also have an extension, which is about the personality inventory, basically. So 10 item personality inventory. This is how it is called. So this describes everything, and then demographic information, education, age, gender. So we can see the data sets. This is a description of the data set. So we'll then open the data set itself, and then we'll see why it is important for us to always clean our data set. So if we open this data set, as it in its present state, I don't think it's making any sense. If we look at it, I believe we are able to see my screen, right? Are we able to still see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We are seeing your screen.
So if we look at this data set, everything is all lumped together. As a
Yes.
matter of fact, the whole on the first cell here, we have the whole responses that are supposed to be on the entire row. Because if I click the next cell, is empty. So we see that the whole data, they are all, this is the passing issue we are talking about. They are only on this first column. If you go here, you won't find anything. And so it's going to be very difficult for you to handle this kind of data if you don't do data cleaning. And so now that we have our data here, we will go into our R. For those of us that have the resources, you will see that the lab demo is also already there, which is the R codes for this particular analysis. And so the moment you open your R, the first thing you want to do is to set your working directory. So you tell R where to operate from, because if your data set is in a different folder and your R is set to a different folder, if you try to read in your data, you will get error because R is working from a different place, while the data you are asking R to work on is in a different place. So R is not a human being that will tell you this data is not here, but it will show you an error code. So what you will do is to go to a session, and then you go to set working directory. And when you go there, you click on choose directory. Then see our directory is already set to webinar lab session. So it means R is going to be operating from here. So we just click open. So you can see set working directory. So our R is already set to this directory. So our data is equally there. So we can then proceed with our data cleaning. So when you open, you are about to begin your analysis, it's important that you you load your packages. So we are going to first load the site packages because this will help us with a lot of descriptive statistics and all of that. So when you load it, if I proceed with the analysis and all of that, and it requires a function from this package, because I have not loaded this package, it's going to tell me that the package or the function does not exist. So you have to tell R by clicking on library and then the package, so that you are telling her, please carry this function or this package along. We will be needing it. So when we get to the point where we require anything from that particular package, R will automatically apply it to your analysis because R has already carried it along. So we need to have that at the back of our mind. Then we read our data into R, and then we use the function read delimited because our data is in tab delimited. That is why it's looking like that. And so we read it in. And so once we read the data in, so you can see our data is already on this environment. And so we can actually look at the data. Once you load your data in, you need to look at it. So if we see here, it is more structured than the earlier one we saw. It's beginning to make sense now. And that is why data cleaning is important. So if we look at it, we have Q1A, Q1I, Q1E, Q2A. So if you look at this question, the Q1A is the question 1A, which is actually the main survey question. So this Q1 Q1I and Q1E. The 1I is the time you spent responding to this first question, and then this Q1E is the time you spent on that page. So these two, they are just time. We don't need them. The same thing with these two, they are time. These are the time spent. So this particular survey has timestamps. So, but we don't need them for the analysis. So we have to make sure that we remove them. But we need this 12A, this 13A, this 14A, and all of that. You get the point. So when we have this, of course, our data extend. Remember, we have down to demographic information. So this tells you the country where it was responded, the sources, and all of that. This is the personality inventory. We have the 10 items, so we can see it here. And these are response check. So to make sure that people are really paying attention. Then we have what? Religion, orientation, race, age, gender, and all of this. So we can see all these things. So the data in its present state is a bit messed up. So we have to begin the process of cleaning. And for the purpose of this practice, I want to just basically extract the items, because we have 42 items on anxiety, depression, and stress, 14 items for depression, 14 for anxiety, and 14 for stress. So we will just extract those 42 items and, of course, include gender and age, just in case we want to check for maybe differences in terms of gender or age. So we proceed. So we have selected the data. So if we look at it, we have the selected data, and we have 39,774 respondents or observations, and then we have 44 variables. So we can see this is cleaner and neater now. So we have just the 42 items, and then we have gender and age. So now that we have this, we can continue with our preliminary data cleaning. So we need to add ID. Remember, there was no ID when we look at the data set, but so we need to number it so that we can, okay, this is respondent 10, 20, 30. And so now we have added an ID using that function. And so if we look at it, we are going to see that there is an ID now. So then we do frequency check to check for frequency to see if we have any replications. So we use that, and then we see if there is multiple entries. And so we look at it, this is telling us 0. It means we do not have any multiple entry. So that means a particular person did not respond many times. That is what it implies. And if we look at the ID for the frequencies, we see that we just have the complete data set. And so we can see 111, which is the frequency. So no one occurred twice. So if a situation where a particular respondent provided multiple responses, we will see that the frequency will be more than 1. But in this case, we just had single responses across. So this is why data cleaning is important. Then we also check to see if there are missing data. If there are missing data, it could skew our analysis. So we want to check and see if we need to remove them. And so checking the whole variables in terms of item 1 down to the ID, we see that they are all 0. It means there is no missing data. But if there are missing data, we will see the information. It will tell us immediately that there is a missing data. And then, of course, we want to also check the missing data rates and then remove the missing data if possible. But because there are no, so this code, just in case you have other data sets that you want to try, you can just apply the codes. But in this situation, we don't have any missing data. So our data set is still complete. The responses are complete. So when we check for missingness, we can then do cosmetic data cleaning so that the name will make sense. Because if not, that I mentioned that we have 14 items on anxiety, 14 on depression, a lot of us would not have gotten the picture in terms of what we are doing. So we then proceed to like rename them. So Renaming them means that our data will no longer be having question one, question two. So we can say we have depression, then we have anxiety, and we have stress. So we've been able to rename the data, and then we proceed to look at the frequency for age, gender. So our gender here is showing that we have 3 and 0. We have 1, we have 2, male and female. This is for others and those that did not respond. So it means we need to clean. Look at the age also, 13, 14, 15, down to, so we can now see our age here. If we look at this particular line, we see these people, we are having people imputing 115, 223, 1991, 1990. So this is not obtainable in reality. Of course, maybe those that imputed 1991, they thought maybe it's the year instead of the age. But then the 223 is giving us a signal that something is wrong. And so what do? We try to see how we can remove some of these options that are not possible. So we do a summary of it to look at the minimum, the maximum, and then we drop the cases that exceed 100 for the ages. And then gender, the ones that are 0, and then the ones that are 3, we try to remove them. So then when we do that, do the drop cases. And so what I am basically doing is to regroup the age so that we have 0 to 20 will be 1. We are recording it. 21 to 40 will be 2, and like that. And so this gives us the summary of everything. Now we have gender, just male and female. We have age categories, and then we set seed. So we just sample maybe 1,000 out of the 39,000 because the data is huge. So we take a sample. I'm trying to run through because of the time, and then we try to finalize our data sets. And then, so this is the final sample. We just have 100, and then we can see 100 and then 45 responses. We added ID and all of that. So then we can check for some descriptive. Like I mentioned earlier, we always need to read library. So this, we bring in the library so that we'll be able to do some other stuff. So here we are trying to create heat map, but for the heat map, I am trying to drop some of the items, like the age, the gender, the ID. So the heat map will just tell us the response rates and all of that. And so we will see the plots in a jiffy. So this is the heat map. Is telling us the response rates. So 60% of the respondents to, let's say this item, you can see 60% of them endorse the first categories, and then we'll see the percentage endorsing the other categories and all of that. Of course, we can also do the scale usage. So we look at those that fall in terms of the categories 1 to 4 on each item. So if we look at, let me try to zoom out. So if we look at maybe item 9, for instance, we see that the category 4, it was just few persons that endorse it. So majority endorse category 1 and category 2. So this helps you to understand the response structure and how the scale is being used and all of that. So now that we have tried to explore that, we can then create a sum, because we want to maybe work on the sum of depression, anxiety, and stress. So we can create a sum and add it to that database, and then look at the descriptive statistics. And then, so these are just the descriptive statistics. And of course, we write it. So we now write the clean data. I will take us to the clean data. So we look at the clean data after we have done everything. So what we did, so this is the final data sets. We now have the sum. So what we did basically is that I have saved the the cleaned data to this place. So this is our clean data. So we can see, so this is the sum. You can equally take this to SPSS, copy this to SPSS or other software for your analysis. And so because of time factor, I will try to just take this particular aspects uh, and then see how we can quickly try one or two using maybe ChatGPT, for instance. And so like I mentioned earlier, your prompting is very, very important. You can use ChatGPT, you can use Julius, but I don't have a paid version for Julius, so it may not allow me to upload the results. You can use Gemovi, you can paste the data here. You can paste the data in Gemovi for your analysis. So where you have your t-test, you have ANOVA and all of that. So, but then let's see if we can use SPSS. And one thing that is very important is your variable description. You have to tell SPSS chart, for instance, how your variable is looking like. So I could go and say, for instance, I have a data set with this structure or with these variables. So I paste the variables and then I could proceed and say, I need you to conduct maybe a regression analysis using depression sum against, let's say, anxiety sum, and then the stress sum. Also, perform a t-test analysis on depression sum with age. I will go ahead and share the raw data file for you to perform or do to for you to perform the analysis. So I could just do this and then chat to try to analyze the image and then tell me to upload. So I could decide to upload the exact CSV file the way it is, or if possible, I could even just copy this particular one because the data is lengthy, it might take some time. So I could paste it. It might take some time, but then we'll wait for the result. And of course, while we are waiting for the result, we could also go to ScienceSpace where we have this. This allows us to upload our file as well. And then I could just go to, where is it? Okay. And so we have our clean data, and then I upload. Then, so one thing you have to understand is that when you give too many instructions, it can become very confusing. So you need to give give the instructions bit by bit. Please conduct a regression analysis for the data using depression, some anxiety, some, and then we have stress some. Also perform a t-test analysis on age, okay, gender versus depression sum. So we have this. You can also provide a correlation matrix as well. So when we have this, you can just send, and then you wait for it to run. So let's see if the SPSS, okay, the SPSS is still running. So I think the Jamovi, you can, yeah, so this is the cloud version of it. Let me see if this is possible. So this, I also have it downloaded on my system. So you can work on it like SPSS. And so once you have it, you could decide to paste your data set here. So I have the data set here. But one thing that you must do is once you paste it, you can clean. You need to like clean it. So we can, the first variable here is, so we go to setup. The first variable is gender. So this is nominal. So, and then we are going to delete this one. So we have one for male. We have two for female. So that is gender. Then we move on to the next one. We have age. So we can also define our age based on what we have. And of course, it's nominal. The next one is not nominal, is continuous. And this is depression. So after that, we have anxiety, and then we have stress. So this is continuous. This is also continuous. So by the time we are done doing this, so we can download the first, delete the first line because we do not need this. So we can then perform our analysis. I think, okay, so yeah, we can perform our analysis if it's t-test you want to do, if it's independent sample t-test, and then maybe you are looking at your gender as your grouping variable, and then you are looking at depression. So you see the results, and then you can continue to check on effect size, descriptive statistics, normality assumption, depending on what you want to do. If it's regression you want to do also, if you want the correlation matrix, you can just load these three continuous variable here, and then so you have everything. So it's that simple. If it's t-test, ANOVA, and all of that. So let's look at, so this is still running. Let's see. So this particular one is done, and so we can see it gives us the correlation matrix. So we can see the correlation matrix. This is depression, depression. So depression and anxiety, depression and stress. So we can see the correlation coefficient. You see the regression summary. It provides you with everything that you need. We see the t-test results. So this is just, if you need further analysis, you go on, give the instructions for it to perform the analysis. This is still running, but because of time, we allow this to run while I quickly do like a rundown of the remaining components of the slide. So when we are done with our analysis, interpreting your results, you need to pay attention to the directions, like is it positive or negative? If you are dealing with effect size, is it small or large? What is the implication, the meaning in terms of real world applications? Because oftentimes we tend to focus on statistical significance, and then we forget to give the real world implications. We just say, p-value is lower than 0.05, so it's significant. So you need to be more specific. For instance, it makes more sense to say students with higher autonomy scored about 8 points higher in achievement, instead of saying there is a significant difference in students' achievement. So you'll be more specific, practical application of the findings. So when you are writing your results, you pay attention to what was tested, what was found and what it means, explain the practical interpretation. A typical example is a regression examine whether autonomy predicted achievement, autonomy positively predicted scores, and then we can see students with higher autonomy perform better in physics. So we need to make sure our interpretation follows this line so that it makes more sense. And a layman will look at it. The last statement is going to make more sense to the person than the second statement. When you say there is significant results, the person says, what does that mean? So you have to be practical with your interpretations. And just like I said earlier, avoid this mistake. Stop collecting too many data. Avoid overcomplicated models. Don't try to work on deadlines day, and don't overload your work with too many variables. And so, yeah, if you have the slides, you have some of these informations. You want to study, at least master this basic statistic, descriptive statistic, t-test, ANOVA correlation, because these are mostly common. Of course, because of ethical concerns, since we are using AI and we are dealing with data, you want to take note of this data privacy. Always seek for consent. You have to be transparent. Make sure you double check whatever AI gives you so that you can be accountable. You need to always own your work. Once AI assists you with anything, be accountable for that. Double check to make sure you can defend it. Yeah, so final takeaways, always ask decision questions, collect minimal data, match questions to analysis, and make sure your interpretation are as practical as possible. Yeah, so thank you for your time. And if you can connect with me on LinkedIn, if you have questions, you can email me while I also allow the convener to take charge.
Wow. Wow. This is great, really, because thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is awesome. Oh, finally, ChatGPT has responded
Yeah,
after
so
8 minutes and 32 seconds.
exactly. So you see, so it's going to definitely, it's just about the prompting. So you must make sure
Yes.
you do your prompts very well and all of that. So I will allow you to take over.
Yes, this is awesome. This is awesome. This is awesome. So I know that for me, I've always known that you could use artificial intelligence for a lot of things. I personally use SPSS, but I didn't know that ChatGPT could help us, run the analysis itself. Honestly, so I'm so glad that you mentioned it and you showed us how to go about it. Thank you so much. I would want to ask. Okay, so we have some students here who are working on their projects. What practical advice, would you give them, whenever they get to chapter 4, where we have data analysis? What practical advice would you give them regarding, approaching chapter 4 and chapter 5, the discussion and all that with confidence?
Okay, thank you very much. Just like I mentioned earlier, it is very, very important to plan your studies, plan your research. Research is systematic, it is procedural. So you don't just wake up one day and then, oh, this is what I want to do. You have to pre-plan. And so before you get to your chapter 4, you must have already planned, give like a layout of what you are expecting or what you will be doing. And that is why it is structural. So before you get to your chapter 4 and 5, while in your chapter 1, during your brainstorming process, your literature review, you pay attention to other statistical techniques that other researchers have used from literature. You relate it to your studies and see if it's making sense. So that you will know the kind of analytical approach that will best help you to answer your research question. Because it will not make sense for you to be doing a study that wants to predict achievement, maybe from students' interest, and then At the end of the day, you get to your analysis, you are stating a different tool entirely. So always plan ahead. Consult your supervisors, consult experts, review literature, do independent studies, watch videos on YouTube. So you will see guidelines on
Yeah.
the kind of analytical tool that best suits or will help you best answer your research question. And once you are able to navigate that, plan your method section well, because everything about your work is around your method section. Once you miss your method section, everything is all messed up. So you have to make sure you know your choice of instruments, the kind of data you need, the kind of tool, analytical tool that will help you to address that data and how you are going to interpret it. So once you're able to figure it out, the next thing you want to do is be very practical with your analysis. The result you have gotten, what does it imply? What does it mean? How can you interpret it in such a way that an ordinary person who is not from your field will be able to understand? So you don't go about dropping statistics in your chapter 5. Your chapter 5 has to be practical implications. This is what this result means. As an ordinary person, when you look at it, oh, I understand this is. So you need to be thinking in that direction as a researcher. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that is awesome. Thank you so much. So from chapter 1, in fact, from when we are thinking about the problem we want to solve, we should, pick out the direction we will follow and the type of analysis that will come into play. That is awesome. Thank you so much. Another
Absolutely.
question I have here is, you have taught us how we can use artificial intelligence. You've shown us Jamovi. You've shown us ChatGPT. Using these artificial intelligence tools to run analysis. While you were mentioning them, you also mentioned something about the ethical use of artificial intelligence. So now the question is, if I use ChatGPT to run this regression analysis, for example, should I, mention in my project that I used artificial intelligence to run my analysis? Is that what you meant by ethical consideration?
Yeah, thank you for that question. You see, education is evolving and we are advancing in a lot of areas. So artificial intelligence is something that you cannot discredit or take away from your education system, because we are
Mm,
digging deep,
mm,
integrating machine learning, deep learning, neural network, and all of that. So it's something that you have to keep up with. But it is
of
important
course.
to use it responsibly. So when you use AI, there are so many journals now that they will tell you to write your AI use statement. So when you get to the concluding part of your study, they will tell you, if you use AI, state that you use AI and state what you used it for. So if you use artificial intelligence for any part of your work, it is important that maybe institutions should maybe start letting the students at least create a section, maybe a paragraph, and state, okay, during my interpretation, I use ChatGPT to help refine my discussion. And of course, I double check to make sure that everything is in order. So whatever
Mm,
result I have, I am responsible for it. So you need to also own your work when you use AI. And like I said earlier, there are a lot of AI fallacies and a lot of hallucinations that you will experience when using AI,
yeah.
especially when you are not good with prompting. If you don't prompt it well, anything you ask AI is going to give you result, but it may not be what you want. That is why you must make sure that your prompting is well directed. Because if I want to ask AI, for instance, I will tell AI, as an educational researcher or as a psychometrician, what is assessment? So AI is not going to think from the perspective of someone who is a psychometrician, who is an educational researcher, because assessment in a broader term could mean some other things. But when I narrow it and I say as a psychometrician or a researcher, AI will now be thinking within that psychometric field. So that is why you need to be specific with your prompts and always double check. check the references to make sure that what is giving you is, because you are going to be held accountable if there are issues with your work. So, and always be transparent. What you used AI for, say it. AI helped me to organize my table, to put it in APA format. As all those things, you need to be straightforward and open with them.
Yes, yes, I agree with you. You know, a lot of persons frown upon the use of artificial intelligence. Sometimes when you mention you use AI to do this, they will start looking at you like you did some kind of misconduct. But I keep telling many persons it is not. It is only misconduct when you don't say you used it. So it is better that you say, oh, I use artificial intelligence to check my grammar. I used it to, arrange my references, just like you mentioned. And I think that is about transparency, actually. So many persons on this call are academics, and I'm glad we are all here. So thank you again. So one
Yeah,
last question.
just
Someone
to
said,
add, so
yeah,
just to add quickly to that, so over here,
yeah,
a lot of instructors allow us to use AI, and they will always tell you the institutional policies allow you to use AI, but you must use it
of course,
responsibly. Of course, there are few
of course,
instructors that will tell you they don't want AI in their class. And there are other instructors
of
that
course.
they will tell you, use AI to do this and then do your own part. So
Yeah,
because AI is here to stay, obviously. So the earlier
of
we
course.
integrate it and see how we can manage it to make sure that we don't use it the wrong way, I think the better for us.
Yes, that is nice. Thank you so much. Someone just sent a message. The person says, how do I know that how do I know that my prompting is wrong and there is something wrong with my analysis?
Well, first of all, uh, just because there's AI and we are encouraged to use AI, it doesn't mean we should just jump into using AI without also learning a bit about AI. First,
Yeah,
you need to have first theoretical understanding. That theoretical underpinning, the foundation is very important so that AI will not mislead you. So you need to do personal literature, personal review. By the time you understand t-test, for instance, very well, and AI is giving you a t-test solution, you will know what it means. But if you don't know a t-test entirely and you come to AI, the AI will give you results, but how do you make sense of it? So I would advise that on your own, you do whatever you are going to ask AI, at least do an independent study to have basic ideas about that particular thing. And then in terms of learning how to prompt, see, prompt engineering is even taught in some universities over here as a course, like the way we study engineering, data science, educational research. Prompt engineering is artificial intelligence. They are taught as courses here. So you can start by learning basic stuff about AI. I think I will try to send maybe a slide over to the convener. Maybe she might share it through the email on how to get your prompts the right way. So because if you master that prompt, you'll be able to do a lot of things with AI. So maybe that will help you to at least get better in terms of prompting so that you get better results from AI.
okay. Someone is asking, should all data be cleaned?
Well, it depends, but you must always make sure you are working with a clean data. Yeah, there are data sets that you might collect and you may not have any issues or anything to worry about, but it is important to double check. Because when you have pool of information, you may not know if one or two information are missing, or like some figures or values may be implausible. So you have to double check, at least do some basic descriptive statistics to make sure that everything is in order before you proceed with your analysis. Because if you don't check, how do you know that the data is good enough or clean? So as a researcher and as a statistician, these are fundamental steps that you need to take. It's just like somebody asking, must I always check for assumptions before I do my statistical analysis? Of course, you have to. If the assumptions are eventually met, good and fine, it will make your study more robust. And when you are doing your write-up, your manuscript preparation, and then you begin to discuss and highlight, present to the reviewer that, okay, I first of all did uh, data cleaning, I did this, I did that, and all of that. So it gives them the impression that, yeah, you did a good job. And yeah, you have ensured that every necessary loopholes and all of that are taken care of. So I would always encourage to clean your data. If you check and then you don't have any issues, always also report that after cleaning, there was no missing data, you just report.
All right. Thank you so much. You also mentioned some sites where we can get free respondents, and I'm glad you mentioned that the site would take your questionnaire, for example, to
Yeah.
the right respondents. So I'm asking if I am, is it just about studies that are kind of universal in nature? For example, if I am doing a study about schools in a rural area in the southeastern part of Nigeria, can I get respondents on those kind of sites? Let's say, for example, Survey Circle.
Yeah, you can get, but the only issue you might have is you might not have a lot of respondents from that particular location that are signed up
Okay.
on that website. Because I
Okay.
oftentimes have received emails about people inviting me to respond to surveys for them,
Yes.
like I think research interview or something like that. So when you fill your profile, if you are the researcher, you go to the website, upload your survey, and then you state the region where you want your respondents to come from. So if
Okay.
it's US, if it's a particular state in the US, for instance, because a lot of persons here, they have maybe accounts on some of these sites. So it's easier for someone here to get respondents. But
Yeah.
in Nigeria, maybe there might be some regions where you may not even have anybody that is registered on that platform. So that is the only issue that you may face. But if we are in if you are in an advanced settings, that would not really be an issue.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And then the last question: What are What are the specific things to check in data cleaning for analysis?
Yeah, so
We have just about 3 minutes left. So yeah.
okay, so some of these may be specific in terms of data cleaning, but generally you want to, just like we demonstrated, you want to
Yeah.
check to make sure that there are no double entries. So the
Yes.
identifier, the IDs, you have to check. You have to check that there are no missing information. Except
Okay.
maybe your study is on, because I have done studies on missingness, how to handle missingness and how it affects psychometric properties of our study instruments and all of that. So you have to check for the missingness. You have to check that the naming makes sense, so that at the end of the day, when you get your result, you'll be able to, from mere inspection of the study variables, you can easily tell this is what, because if I had not numbered or renamed that particular data set with depression, anxiety, and stress, a lot of us would not really have understood what the Q1, Q2, Q3 meant. So you have to do that diagnostic cleaning to also make sure that the values you have are actually acceptable. Let's say you are doing a study that the maximum score or maximum number you expect to see is 10. and then you are seeing 80, you are seeing 100, you are seeing 120, it means there is a fundamental issue. So there are implausible values. So you have to check for that. Look at the descriptive statistics to see the distribution of responses. If there is a balanced distribution of responses, to check for normality, courtesy, skillness, and all those things. So it helps improve the value of your study.
Yeah, thank you. And then another one, last one, I promise. As someone new to data analysis, what basic skills do I need to be a good analyst?
So if you are new to data analysis, I think the first thing you would want to do is start by learning about statistics first. You need to know what statistics entails generally in terms of as a field and as measures, where you learn about descriptive statistics, inferential statistics, parametrics and non-parametrics statistics. So you learn all those things, because when you learn those concepts, they will tell you the t-test, the ANOVA, the chi-square that you are seeing. Those forms or measures of statistics will tell you the family they belong to and at what point in time that you need to use each of them. And it will also provide you with the interpretation. And that was why I highlighted in one of the slides that if you can master t-test, descriptive statistics, ANOVA, regression, factor analysis, it solves so much of your problems when it comes to data analysis. Of course, we have advanced ones where you study models and some other ones, data science and all of that. But these are like the basics, and they are foundational for every other task in data analysis.
Wow. Thank you again. So I must say that this was a very eye-opening session, honestly. Many persons, thought we were going to be saying something else, and now we have learned that we could actually use artificial intelligence to run analysis. We can get respondents. Now, respondents, so if you don't know what respondents are here, it means people that will respond, that will answer your questionnaire. So, and now our presenter has taught us that there are actually, websites where you could paste your questions or post your questions, and then the site will take your questions to the right people that will respond to them. Even though there's a little glitch, when it comes to us, because, many of these, sites, we do not usually use them down here, but now that we know what they are and that they exist, I believe that we would start, paying attention. Because for me, sometimes I get messages, emails from people I don't know, honestly, and from websites asking me to respond to this poll, do this one, and I am not even going to lie. I don't even read them twice. But now I understand what it is all about, and I will be paying more attention now. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for all of you that are here till this moment. Someone just sent me a message and said that he is enjoying the question and answer session, that we should get more questions. But we have to let everyone go now because we are a stickler for time. Thank you very, 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 very much to all of you. Thank you, Dr. Christopher Ocheni, for your time. And yes, all resources are going to be sent out. You will get a recording of this session, and everything will be there for everybody. You will get the slides. You will get the recording. It will be on our YouTube page. And yes, further webinars, many of you that dropped your email addresses, you will get calendar invites. So until next time, it is possible we will have another session next month, but stay tuned. So until next time, thank you all so much for coming to learn with me and for sticking to the end. God bless you. I'll see you again in the next one. Good night. Bye-bye.